Back in March, I did a series where I completed 55 out of the 57 Vice City missions without ever shooting a gun. But what if this time we tried to beat the game with the cars removed from the equation? Is it possible to beat GTA Vice City without ever driving a car? Let's find out. Let's quickly get the rules out the way. So I am allowed to get into vehicles, but what I'm not allowed to do is move inside of a vehicle. Treat it as in I can't touch the pedals. I can get into passenger seats or whatever else, but I cannot accelerate myself and I cannot reverse. The definition of movement is done via the game's stats. So there are stats in the game that track movement inside cars, bikes, boats, and helicopters, and they tell you your distance traveled. And the plan is to keep all of those as low as possible, except boats. There are a couple of missions in the game that require you to take boats to a certain place, and there's no known way that I've ever found to manipulate them in such a way without just simply driving them. So those are an exception, but the other three stats we're going to keep as low as possible. It's going to be on the PC, more specifically the Steam version, with no cheats, and heavy glitches will only be used if absolutely necessary. The reason I mentioned about the stats menu is because, as you can see, as soon as you start the game, Tommy is actually the one driving Ken in this cutscene, and it counts towards the stats. So we are starting off at 0.04. We cannot avoid that because we don't have control, so we can't manipulate it. It's before the game even starts. So that stat starts above 0. So the plan is to just keep it as low as possible from then on. A quick exploit to mention at the start is that you can constantly tap the sprint key to allow Tommy to sprint for much longer periods of time than if you were to just hold it. Most of you will believe that between jogging and sprinting, those are the two main methods of getting around the game if you are on foot. But there is another way which puts you in a sort of state that is in between sprinting and jogging in terms of speed, and we call that sliding. Playing a replay shortly after switching weapons will put you in the state that you can see on screen. This allows me to give my finger a rest instead of constantly sprinting everywhere. There are also a few other methods to teleport around the game, for example, but they're quite specific, so I'll mention them when they come up. We let our mob boss know that we've failed his mission before beginning the search as to who messed up our drug deal in the intro cutscene. On our path to get some new clothes, we find a ruffian causing trouble, so we are sure to do some local vigilantism. Vigilantism? Fuck it, I hit him and I got some money. Alright, that's all you need to know. As we enter Raphael's place for a change of clothes, the game tries to bait us into stealing a motorbike. However, as a constructive member of society, we merely compliment him on his fine purchase.
Nice bike.
And be on our merry way. I could tell that Mercedes was just drooling at my bee-hopping skills.
See you around, handsome.
I'm sure you will.
Psych!
Seeing her again is optional. We go and see my long-lost brother, Kent Paul, before grabbing our handy-dandy shotgun and making an absolute mockery out of this chef. Oh, and we also steal his new iPhone. You now might be saying to yourself,
But Ben, you have to drive Lance and his Inferno City ammunition. There's no way you can do this.
well, do I have a surprise for you, bunch of lunatics. Thomas here not only is lightning fast, but also has superhuman strength where he can push entire vehicles, vans, whatever, trucks, buses, just purely with his big old thighs. Note that later on I turned the frame limiter off because that makes this even easier. It's worth noting here that once Tommy gets into the cutscene, he is driving Lance here, which would put you to 0.06 rather than 0.04 on the counter. There is a way around this, but I had to go back and repeat it, so I'll show it off later. During Jury Fury, it seems there was more hooligans than ever. Fortunately, the right hand of justice solved all problems. You'd think that an American police officer would just shoot on sight in this situation.
It's true, but he shouldn't say it.
All was going well until Riot, where I played a replay and crashed my game like a dumbass. Fortunately, this gives me the perfect opportunity to go back to Back Alley Brawl and get that counter back to 0.04. By getting back out of the car just as you enter the cutscene, you can make Lance drive himself, which keeps the counter at 0.04.
I'm gonna go see what I can dig up. I'll be watching you, Tommy.
Okay, bye. After we finally get back to where we were, we go on to Treacherous Swine, where you have to kill Gonzalez with a chainsaw and lose the police via the pain spray. You need to be in a car in order to use the pain spray. In this specific mission, it's easier to just shoot nearby bribe stars, but the pain spray is still usable by simply pushing a car inside and entering it. Going back to this mission, only one bribe is necessary, as a 1-star wanted level will go away on its own, and then you need to be in a vehicle to finish the mission, but you can simply enter and exit any. The chase in Mall Shootout can be easily avoided via quick movement and killing the guy before he's able to ride away.
Dude, you're dumb if you don't think you stripped me.
To bypass this chase at the end of the mission, I was going to use some cool tricks using clothes icons to kill this guy in the cutscene, but I forgot and ended up having just to snipe him normally instead. I'll play you a quick snippet of what was supposed to happen, because it does look pretty cool in my opinion. Picking up a clothes icon via the replay system on PC allows you to gain control in cutscenes, which allows me to absolutely destroy this guy before the chase even occurs. The next mission requires us to chase a man to Prawn Island. As you might have guessed by now, the Hurricane doesn't like chases. In this chase, there's a gunner and a driver. You can kill the driver, but the gunner has to get to Prawn Island for the mission to pass. We can do a little magic to make this guy disappear, but still be counted by the game as present in his car. This is quite a few glitches strung into one, so I'll go through it as best as I can. The first step is to sprint ahead of the gunner across the rooftops, hop down to where his car will spawn, and then pick up a clothes icon just before the cutscene starts. Pull the driver out of the car and kill him, then play musical chairs for a little bit with the gunner and he will vanish. With this guy vanished into oblivion, but somehow with the game thinking he's still inside the car, we can simply just push the car to the end, and that's one of our biggest obstacles out of the way. As we all know, during Phnom Penh, Lance is the one piloting the helicopter, so our stats are sitting nicely. However, some of you may never have seen what Tommy looks like when in turret mode. Thankfully, closed pickups allow us to see his preferred way of dealing with thugs. An interesting side effect of this is that Tommy shoots at 1 bullet per frame, so these guys just get absolutely massacred.
I'm fast as fuck, boy.
Easy peasy. A nice bit of movement tech in the right circumstances is called car surfing. You can stand on top of a car and shoot it in order to spook the driver and make them quickly drive away while you stand on their car. Just be careful not to fall off and get run over. This mission actually only requires you to use a boat to pass it. The reason I'm showing this footage is because I believe that it may be possible, with enough luck, to pass it without driving the boat. I tried myself for around 3 hours and I had no success, but here's my theory in case you want to try it out. Firstly, you head down to the docks and kill absolutely everyone. Make sure that you hit the lever as intended, as warping straight into the boat will add 0.02 onto your boat movement stat. Get into the boat to trigger the 3-star wanted level and subsequently the police boats to attack you. Get a police boat to ram your boat straight onto the docks, lose your wanted level, and then push the boat back to Starfish via the road. I could never get the stars to align and get a boat to behave and push me enough to let me do the rest of the job, but I'm sure it is possible. But for now, we'll just continue on. You may think that taking on an entire army convoy in nothing but a suit is too much for poor Tommy, but you'd be very mistaken. You may also think that a tank would be impossible for Tommy to push with his big chunky legs, but you'd also be very mistaken. You may think that Death Row may be quite tricky without a car, as you need to run from point A to point B. However, knowing the enemy spawns and how to manipulate Lance makes it much easier. The first timer is actually easily doable by simply taking the Leaf Links bridge and sprinting right over there. You have more than enough time to kill everyone in the scrapyard for safety. While we're saving Lance, let's talk about his behavior and how we can use it to our advantage really quickly. The first thing is that he will always try and run to you in a straight line. The second is that By holding my sprint key, it will always make him sprint to me, even when I'm not sprinting. And thirdly, when you're too far away from Lance, he will stop moving until you come back into his radius. This behavior applies to any friendly NPC that is following you. So, the general strategy in these missions is to abandon the NPC until the threat is dealt with, and then pick them up later. Unfortunately, on Death Row, Lance seems to like to teleport around if you try and lose him, so a different strategy was needed. To those unaware, when you exit the scrapyard with Lance, a bunch of guys in comets will spawn and hunt you down. You are no match for them without a vehicle, so instead, I very much wanted to destroy them before we departed. Thankfully, the nearby Haitian gangs really didn't take kindly to those comet-driving psychos, and they gave me a hand in taking them out, while I kept Lance nice and safe stuck behind a fence. In order to absolutely embarrass Diaz, I used a new form of sliding known as pill sliding. If you collect an adrenaline pill mid-slide and then end the effect, it causes you to slide much faster. We can then utilize a nice clip into the mansion to avoid going around the back and kill Diaz before he could even call us a dickhead.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Yoink, my mansion now. Usually on the mission bar brawl, you would have to chase two guys on bikes at the end of the mission. But with correct positioning and a bit of foresight, it's easy enough to snipe them before they escape with a rifle. On Copland, we can finally utilize Lance's AI to keep him safe while we deal with the police. This time, we're going to need a car set up in the pay and spray, so we can lose the cops later, but we also need to make sure the car doesn't despawn. We can put a traffic car in a glitch state by playing a replay to interrupt their exit animation. This will keep the car in memory and have it never despawn on us. It's very important that we use another vehicle to glitch the passenger's door instead of the driver's, otherwise when we enter the glitched car, we'll be completely stuck inside. With this car set up near the pay and spray, we can plant the bomb in the cafe and abandon Lance somewhere safe like the beach, lose the cops and return to him later. From here on, the game gets pretty non-linear, so some planning is definitely necessary. In order to unlock the final chain of missions, you must complete 7 different assets. 2 of them are mandatory, the Vassetti Estate, which we just finished with Copland, and the Printworks, where the final missions take place. The other 5 can be whatever you like. Here's our options. Our choice is pretty obvious if you know these assets well enough, as the ice cream factory requires you to drive an ice cream truck around for a long time without ever exiting the vehicle, and the film studio has several missions that require vehicles to be driven. With those 2 ruled out, here's what we have left. Let's get started, shall we? The easiest asset is by far the pole position. Plus, I was just really in the mood to see some smoking hot babes. We can utilize a glitch here and purchase the property inside of a replay. This lets us buy the property, but keep our money. Completing this asset is really easy. You just need to spend $300 on strippers total. Next up is Kaufman Cabs. There's 3 missions to do here for the asset, and the first one requires you to drive a Kaufman cab to Starfish Island and collect a customer with a 1-minute time limit. Certainly impossible to do on foot without something extra. Remember when I talked about other methods to teleport around the map at the start of the video? We'll be using one here known as save warping. When you collect a save icon, no matter where you are, as long as you're in the same area or district, it will teleport you to the save icon. This means that we can make a replay of Tommy picking up a save icon nearby to teleport back to it whenever we are in free roam mode. We can easily manipulate the game into thinking that we're in free roam mode even while on a mission, but if you're interested in how this works technically, you can check my speedrunning guides where this is all explained. We can beat this strict time limit by glitching a Kaufman cab like before and pushing it to the marker before starting the mission. Then quickly starting the mission and sprinting all the way to the same district as Cherry Poppers in order to teleport to the nearby ice cream factory. This extra boost gives us just enough time to make it.
This is my fare. Back off, asshole.
Do you honestly think you're fucking funny fucking with my friend?
This part was actually entirely winged because I meant to snipe him way earlier. I had no idea this fence was bangable, but I'm glad it was.
Okay, just please, don't hurt me.
The final Kaufman mission requires you to take a Kaufman cab to the docks, just to get ambushed by a bunch of other taxis. You have a choice, either kill them all or survive for 1 minute. My first idea to do this was to pull a Sasha Grey and let them gangbang me for 60 seconds. I later found out that this actually counts towards your movement stats, even though you aren't doing anything. Just you simply moving inside of a car counts. Back in the old speedrun days, you would use an RPG to blow up the cars quickly, so I did that, and then made an absolute fool out of the Tiger Cab guy. From here, we can do the boatyard, as it's right next door, and we can use the cab to skip the whole thing. If you start Taxi Driver, and then start the boatyard mission on top, the boatyard will instantly complete, which gives us our next asset. Next on our list was our final mandatory asset, the Printworks. None of these missions were too hard, just a few things to note. Firstly, the taxi here counts towards your distance, so we need to run there ourselves. Secondly, you can use another save warp to the boatyard to complete hit the courier before the lady can even get to her car. Next up was Sunshine Autos, which was very trivial. Collect cars, push them to the garage, enter them to get the door open, push them in, done. Our final asset is the Malibu Club, and this one has 4 missions. The first mission isn't too bad. All we have to do is bust Cam Jones out of jail and deal with the big wanted level. All that we do is we simply abandon him, deal with the cops, then come back to him. The next mission is a simple aim test. Quite boring, especially since I had to complete it twice because on the way back the first time, this happened. Then my game crashed. This is just a rare bug that happens sometimes, so back to the shooting range we go. After I got that mission out of the way, it's time for easily the biggest obstacle in this entire challenge run, the driver. In this mission, you have to prove that you're a great driver by beating Hillary in a race. This mission is already notorious as he has a very fast Saber Turbo and you're stuck with a mediocre Sentinel. Tommy is fast, but he isn't nearly fast enough to beat Hillary on foot. My first plan was to use a bunch of glitched cars to get Hillary stuck, like a blockade, and then push the Sentinel into each checkpoint, get out and in, rinse and repeat for the entire race. What I didn't know is that there's a check in the code to respawn Hillary if he gets stuck. So at the final checkpoint, I failed the mission as Hillary apparently died. What happened? Well, when Hillary gets stuck and you take your camera off of him and move a certain distance away, the game puts him back on the closest new path in order to set him free. What Rockstar forgot to check was that Hillary can use paths made specifically for boats. The second closest path to the Malibu is in a nearby river, so Hillary teleports there and drowns. He isn't classed as dead until you hit the final checkpoint, so maybe I could push him in the water all the way to a new path and beat him to the end. There are several places where this would work in theory, but the only boat I found that could reliably push Hillary was really slow and shit. This meant I had to push him slowly to each destination to check if it would work. Getting to the correct destination took me over 5 hours of attempts. I overflowed the race timer 3 times in one session. And when I finally got him onto land once more and he found a nearby path, this happened. Honestly, I have no clue how he managed to just skip all the checkpoints and somehow beat me in seconds, because he should have been stuck on the beach path as it loops around. It was clear this plan was more effort than it was worth. The next idea was something somehow even more AIDS to pull off. As I mentioned before, Hillary will only teleport if he is off camera, so the new plan was to go through each checkpoint slow and steady again, pushing the car, like last time, but this time keep Hillary on camera the entire race, in order for him to not despawn. The issue is that there's no marker on the radar to show where Hillary is, and the pink arrow disappears when you go too far away. And sometimes you have to look through buildings, so there's absolutely no way of knowing if you despawned him or not when you're far away. It's purely blind faith and using the buildings for reference. If you fail, you have to do the whole thing again, and you don't know if you failed or not until the very end. Seemingly a completely impossible task. I managed to somehow pull this off first try, and I'm absolutely ecstatic about it, since it was 45 minutes per attempt, and I'd already spent over 7 hours on this mission theory crafting different stuff by this point. For reference, this entire recording is in 8 parts. The entirety of sessions 6 and 7 are of this one mission. It's kinda sad that the water pushing strat didn't work, as that was one of the nuttiest things I'd ever tried to pull off in this game, but it is what it is. What's important is that we did it, and we're on the home stretch now. The final Malibu mission is pretty simple. You just have to babysit these morons while pushing a taxi to the bank you're about to break into. A nice extra about this mission is that Hillary is scripted to die, but Cam can also die without consequence. Only Phil has to stay alive for the mission to pass. This makes dealing with the cops after much easier. Once that mission was taken care of, we simply had to return to the printworks, kill some members of the IRS. No, you can't have my OnlyFans paycheck. Fuck off. And then it was on to the grand finale, the final showdown with Sonny. Everything had led up to this. All we had to do was kill him on foot, and the challenge was complete.
From me, Sonny, and now I'm gonna make you pay. You still don't get it, do you? I own you, Tommy. Those 15 years were mine to spend.
You got your baited. You got your baited. You got your baited.
In all seriousness though, I hope you enjoyed watching this. It took me a really long time to get all the footage, plan it all out, theory craft, do it, and edit it all together. With that being said, thank you very much for your time, and have a good one.